to the attendees. Glad to have you all here. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat box. We'll definitely be monitoring that, and feel free to introduce yourself so we know where you're from. Excited. We know you're from all around, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia. Exciting times ahead, and we have businesses from all over to also tell you guys what's it like in these places. So, let's just kick it off, I guess. We'll do a round robin in the beginning just to, get a feel for the participants and know who they are. Let's start with Laura. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Artbound?
Thanks, Tarma. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. And thank you for tuning in. So my name is Laura, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Artbound Initiative. So we call ourselves ABI in short. So ABI is a global career accelerator for creatives. So basically, what we do is that we're an agency that connects students and also fresh grads with companies in the creative world. So we're a little bit niche on that and focused, in like areas like marketing, advertising, design, film, fashion, arts. And basically, we organize international opportunities. So let's say I see a lot of you guys are from different places, but let's say any of you guys were students or fresh grads from Australia or Malaysia or Singapore and wanted to go have an internship in New York. That's something that we facilitate. So basically, what our program does is that we're really focused on like professional development. So there's an entire coaching curriculum, almost like a course credit. And as part of the program as well, there's a guaranteed internship opportunity that's also offered with, for example, an agency or a production company in the location that you're interested in. And I'll tell you in a second which locations we offer. And then we also help on all the relocation process. So visa, insurance, housing, all the logistics. And then we have a major networking aspect with like all of our alumni and community and event and on-site support. So it's a program that we've launched because we know that it's not easy to find jobs and internships, specifically when it's international. There's like visa sponsorships in place, which are a nightmare. I know because I came from Paris to New York and it was horrible. And like, it was a lot of money spent and time and efforts for very little results. So we wanted to bring, to create this platform to really help people access those opportunities. So I'd be happy to tell you more later on, because I know we've got to keep it pretty short to keep this engaging. And I'll be happy to tell you a bit more about the process, the application, the program tuition, the different destinations. But just so that you guys know, we have opportunities in New York, in Melbourne, Sydney, Berlin, Hong Kong, and we're launching Los Angeles in 2022. So this is a little bit about us, and obviously happy to answer more questions as we go along.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Laura. That's really, really interesting. Really cool that you'll have opportunities just everywhere. David, why don't you go next?
Hey guys, I'm David from Dimples. I'm based in Malaysia. We're not that international like Laura. We're just based here in Malaysia for now. But we have a regional presence, but our team is all sitting here. Next year, we'll do more the US because the golf market there is much bigger. But just a quick snapshot of Dimples. Dimples is basically the Tinder for golf. So if you want to look for somebody to play golf with and you have nobody to play golf with, you use Dimples. You post a game and somebody else can join you. It's as simple as that.
Lovely. That's really cool. I mean, as a golfer myself, I do end up playing alone a fair bit. So maybe I'll check that out. Arvi, why don't you go next?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Prosper for this opportunity. I was telling Karma before that, during my time, I was really having a hard time looking for an internship, right? So if we have this event before, it could have been easier for most of us. I mean, most of us this generation, right? So I am RV. I am from Shutterrock. I'm going to talk about our company more in detail later on. But basically what we do is that we are a creative tech company. So we actually produce any digital assets that you need for your campaigns, whether it's for Facebook, Instagram, all of those social networks out there, even your static assets, HTML5 assets. We produce all of those across any screen, across any vertical. I'm going to talk through our process, who we are, what we do later on during the breakout session.
Lovely, no problem. Excited to get to that. Thank you, RV. Max, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and Pantas?
Hi everyone, my name is Max Lee. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Pantas, a climate and finance tech startup based in Malaysia. You heard it right, it's climate and finance tech. So Pantas is founded by 3 returnees from New York City. So do have experience talking about how hard it is to get internship, etc. in New York for international students. So founded by 3 returnees from New York City with combined 40 plus years of experience in AI, finance, software, and startup. Our track record include the sales of my previous data analytics startup, Pixis, to Bain, New York in December 2019. So currently, Pantas provides a free software for SME to automate the billing, invoicing, and payment process. And with the data collected from this process, we are able to offer seamless and affordable financing to these SMEs. And we're also developing a software to automatically measure and track the greenhouse gas emission for our user, so we can provide them with green financing. And that's why I said Pantas is a climate and finance tech startup, one of a kind. And we are very proud of what we're going to do for our user and for the environment as well. So I can go further, but now I'll leave it to, I'll give others a chance to introduce themselves first. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. That's definitely the first time I've heard finance and the environment get put together, but really refreshing to hear. Andre, why don't you kick us off?
Hi everyone. Can you hear me?
All good.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Andre from Singapore, and here at EduDrift, we are a company that enables talented individuals in the developing world to be able to teach classes in photography, art, music, and public speaking. Personally, I came from a debating and public speaking background, and so are my co-founders. And one of the things that we found out, as we were approaching graduation, is that it's very difficult to find a job that pays well and at the same time is as fulfilling as the things we love to do when we were in university, right? So what we do here at EduDrift is that if you're good at the arts, the music, or if you're good at debating, public speaking, we want to be able to help you run classes online. And what we do here is, the specialists that teach classes online, all they have to do is care about teaching while we take care of the formation of classes for them, the pricing, and ultimately we also take care of making sure that they get the fair remuneration for their efforts. So that's what we do here, so that individuals who are young and talented, especially those in the developing world, have an access to a market that's beyond their borders and possibly be able to earn a fair income from what they do here. Yeah, so that's what we do here at EduDrift. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. And as a former debater and debate trainer myself, that does sound really good. It gets pretty tough out there. Thank you. And just to round up the panelists, Larissa, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and Cheetah?
Hi, so I am the global recruiter for Cheetah Digital. We are a multi-national company. We work in marketing technology. So we are a SaaS company. We offer marketing systems such as a CRM. We have a loyalty platform, mailing platform, messaging platform. We help our clients with social media, customer analytics, and advertising. We do work with quite large clients. So some of our clients are like Starbucks, American Express, and Disney. Our headquarters are in the US. So we are not exactly a startup, I would say, but 4 years ago, we actually divested from a larger company. So we have a startup culture, but we do have quite a large number of staff worldwide. We are about 1,000 total, but within the APAC region, we're about 150 staff. We're generally hiring for a lot of technical sales and marketing roles at the moment. I personally hire in Australia and Hong Kong, but we do also hire for roles in Malaysia, India, and the Philippines. Most of our staff work remotely, but we do have offices in Melbourne, Sydney, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and India. And yeah, we're always looking for a staff, and we're also recently merging with another marketing tech company, which will double our size. So we're definitely looking forward to that immense growth that we're going to have next year, where we'll actually go from 1,000 to 2,000 staff worldwide.
That is a lot of staff. Thanks, Larissa, and best of luck with the merger. We actually have another panelist joining us from Global Signing. Joshua, why don't you tell us a bit about Global Signing and yourself? Hello? Oh, I guess it's some technical difficulties. We'll get back to her later. So let's just move on to the next question. Essentially, what we'd like to know from all you guys is, what would y'all say the ideal fresh graduate candidate looks like? What would you say are the greatest qualities that sort of stand out in a graduate, or when you see a CV or you meet someone, just really gets it to stick with you and something you remember through that process of hiring them? Why don't we start with David?
Hey, I think the thing that would stick out the most, if somebody can communicate well, because that's the only thing that you can judge somebody on right off the bat. A lot of other things, you can't really judge from. Of course, you look at the resume already, right? So that's fine. That's why you're speaking with them. So communication skills is best, but that is definitely not the only thing that would gauge whether a person is good or not. But that would be the first impression.
Interesting. Max, why don't you follow?
Well, your question is greatest qualities. So I, for Pantas new hires or well, fresh grad or not, we are looking for 5 values, and it's in our cultural deck. We do have like a 100-page deck, but it's not dry, it's funny, it's interesting, but unfortunately I can't share here. But anyway, the question is 5 value that we treasure is dream big. We want people to dream big because it's a startup. You have to dream big if you want to join a startup. Growth mindset, and I mean like curiosity and willingness to learn, because whether you're new or you have experience, like startup is just new. We have new tech, new ways of doing things. So the curiosity to learn, and then accountability and ownership. One team means teamwork. And lastly, impatient optimism. We do like optimistic people. We want to get where we're going to get to where we want to be quickly, and for that we need passionate and optimistic people. So those 5 values. So yeah, that's how I would summarize it.
Oh, I love that, Max. Prosper also has a culture deck, and yeah, there's some things that you mentioned that are on there as well. Love it when companies really go in depth and really want to tell people about their culture. I think it really helps find the right candidates for you guys, really sets you in the right direction.
Yeah, I would like to share some photo from our deck. It's it's fun, but some other time. Thank you.
Nice, no worries. Laura, why don't you go next?
Well, I definitely think, for me, because of the position that we're in with this program, I'm talking to recruiters like all day long, every day, all day, because we're trying to find opportunities, right, for our participants. And I definitely say that this current market, what I'm noticing is that recruiters are looking for unicorns. This is kind of like the big keyword right now. So they're really looking for people that have, a set of skills that's really established, but also something else on top of that in some ways, because now I feel like specifically for fresh grads, they're looking for people that are able to wear multiple hats, not just like a graphic designer or, a computer scientist. Like you need to, if you're a graphic designer, then you should be adding some motion work. If you're like somebody who's in marketing, then maybe you should have an area, an affinity for content creation and social media marketing, for example. So really trying to think about what else could you be doing at this stage that's maybe outside of the box or outside of your exact major to kind of set you apart from the crowd. I think that's really what recruiters, at least in my experience, are looking for, and something that you're able to really put through in your application, right? Not only in your resume, but also maybe having a portfolio, even if you're not a creative, having some projects that you've done, I think goes a long way. So I would say that's what I'm noticing, what recruiters are seeking right now for fresh grads.
Amazing. Thank you. That was really in depth. And I hope everyone listened. That was usually from the mouth of someone that talks to recruiters every day. Narissa, why don't you go next?
Yeah, so we have a really big culture of kind of learning and sharing here. And we love people who show a lot of initiative even in the beginning of their career. So we really look for people who are open to learning, especially if you're early in your career. We just want people who are open to learning on the job, are curious and ask a lot of questions. And that's one of the main things that I really look for. We don't necessarily have like graduate programs or internships, but we do have entry-level positions. So we have a lot of staff who had just freshly graduated and have joined our business. And that's kind of the what we really look for in candidates when they're new in their career. It's just people who are open to learning.
Amazing. Love to hear that. Andre, why don't you go next?
Yeah. So I think your question was all about what do I look for, or what do we look for in fresh graduates, and I think the context behind that is understanding that it's very difficult to expect fresh graduates to have like a whole lot of experience in the industry they're about to enter, or even the role they're about to enter. I think most of these applicants are applying with some experience or some expertise based on their school. Right. So I think here at EduDrift, what we look forward to isn't like, are you stacked up in your CV to be able to prove that you're the best person for the job? Because here we believe that we can mold you towards what is required for the job. So what we look for in particular, especially because for us, we're a small team, so our hires are, we know we have to be very precise with our hires because we don't hire a lot. Right. So what we look for is really whether or not you're able to speak of experiences that are divergent from the traditional education journey that you had, right? So if you're a person that is, like in Singapore, your entire education route is just take the A levels, get it into a convenient university within the country, and then do your honors and then graduate. Those things don't stand out for us, right? But if you're on the side, if you started a recycling drive on your own, however small it might be, or if you've got an Instagram page that you're maintaining yourself, right? In a specific niche market or a niche interest group, or you created some random project that is just entirely different from the course you're studying. I think those things allow us to start conversations on, because I think those divergent activities that you do speak a lot about the character of the person, right? Whether or not you're a person that's likely to be, willing to take initiative, willing to do something different in the team, because I think every company is different, and I think here at EduDrift, I think you gotta get to know like people from different countries and all that, and that judging your personality and your willingness to collaborate or to try something new comes from those experiences. So I'd say we judge based on experience that are non-academia and non-traditional, right? And I think those things help us sort of evaluate if a person is a good fit for us. So I think in a startup, it's not so much are you competent for the job. I think it's more, are you a good fit for our team and what we like to achieve down here. Yeah.
Thank you, Andre. That was great. And just to round us up, Arvi, you want to tell us a bit about what an ideal candidate is going to look like for Shuttle Rock?
Thank you so much. For me personally, right, it's a different ballgame when you are hiring fresh graduates, right? Like you are looking for regular candidates with a lot of experience, you have a lot of things you're looking for, right? But when I'm hiring for fresh graduates, I don't actually look for hard skills, right? I don't It's not a deal breaker for me if you know Photoshop, if you know this or that software, right? The things that are important for me are, number one, you should be highly trainable, right? As a fresh graduate, you should be open to ideas. You should be open to learning new things. Especially here at Chatara, we are 100% in the digital space. And the thing is, with the digital space, everything is ever changing. It's continuously evolving, right? So it's super important for you to be open to learning. You have to be a sponge, right? Basically absorb every knowledge you can, as much as you can. And the second one is you have to be hungry. It's super important for me to be hungry, not just for food, right? Because we all love food here at Sharrock. Hungry for excellence, hungry for knowledge, hungry for everything that will help you eventually hone your skills and develop who you are as a professional, right? And third and most important thing is you should know how to have fun, especially if you would like to join our company. Especially right now in the pandemic, right? We are just sitting in our home. We are doing our work 9 to 6, 9 to 7. If you don't know how to have fun, it's gonna get crazy. I mean, your mental health will be at risk. So you should be highly trainable. You should be hungry for excellence, but you should always know how to have fun.
Love to hear that, especially the last point, a really nice one. Just to recap for anyone that just joined, we asked these lovely, knowledgeable people what their ideal fresh grad candidate looks like. And just some of the highlights is the ability to communicate, being flexible, staying hungry, having a growth mindset, and just all in all, just willing to learn on the job. And that's great. I hope you guys pick something up from that. The next question I'm going to ask you guys is more of a situational sort of thing. So right now, if you had two of the, what I would say are strong candidates in front of you, and you have their CVs present and you're trying to make a decision, what's going to be the deal breaker? What's going to make, the other one sort of stand out from the other person? And how differently do you assess candidates now as compared to before the pandemic? So a bit of a two-parter. Hope that's okay with you guys. If you need any clarifications, just ask me and I'll give you guys the question again. But yeah, why don't you start us off this time, Narissa?
Yeah, for sure. I think it can be really difficult. It does depend on the level of the candidate that we're talking about. But for me, I really look for not necessarily, I know people always say culture fit, but for me, it's more what value can you bring to the team that you're joining, and how can you add to our culture? So what can you bring that's unique to you that'll really help us build and make our teams better? Because at the end of the day, you're also learning from your coworkers. So we want someone who can also share their knowledge with everyone else. And that's something that'll make someone else stand out from the other person. In terms of pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic, we haven't really changed the way we look at candidates. We've always had remote staff, so that's never really affected us bringing anyone on board. We still look at everyone the same way. Work-life balance is really important to us, and we're quite flexible here. So that hasn't really changed much for us, to be honest.
Nice, that's great to know. Max, why don't you go next?
Hi. Well, in terms of quality we look for, I think the deal breaker would be whether a person have, like I said, growth mindset. And then we distill our growth mindset into two values. I call it curiosity and honesty. Curiosity here means whether you are eager to learn rapidly, like one of the panelists mentioned, whether you're hungry, whether you can contribute effectively outside of your specialty, whether you understand our culture, our strategy. So those, or we rank it, we put it under curiosity. And secondly, honesty. So honesty is just simply being direct and being candid. We don't beat around the bushes. For us, direct communication is preferred. So, and during interview, you can kind of tell for a candidate when you ask for a question and how they answer, you can tell how candid they are. So we prefer candidate that, like I said, direct. And because we believe that it's an important value, because in Pantas, a lot of times when we do a project, etc., we encourage dissent. We farm for dissent. And if you are not honest, not direct, it's not going to help with our decision-making process. And in Pantas, we say things about our fellow employees that we'll say to their face. So if I tell you suck, and I'll tell you suck because of X, Y, reason, and this is how you can improve. We are not going to beat around the bushes. So for us, that's a very important important qualities, and quick to admit mistakes. So even as a CEO, if I make a mistake, we'll own up to it, and then we'll improve. And that's what we want for our employee as well. So I think the deal breaker here, like I said, the growth mindset, and underneath it is the curiosity and the honesty. So that's kind of how we look at our candidate. And in terms of pre or post pandemic, unfortunately, we only started in April this year. So I can't really give that comparison. But I hired for a lot of people before the pandemic for my various role in investment banking, in hedge fund, in my previous startup as well. So I can say that I think now we are provide versus before. I think the company has provided a little bit more flexibility. We care a little bit more about our employees' mental health, and try to have more fun in this environment. Well, luckily, Malaysia at least is opening a little bit, so we are trying to get people to to meet up physically, so that helps with communication, and also, like I said, having fun. Thank you.
Welcome. Nice to hear, Max. And this is the second time mental health's been mentioned. Love that it's becoming more and more prominent, especially with the changes that's happening this day. Jisha, why don't you go next and tell us a bit about Global Sign-In? What would be the deal breaker between two ideal candidates, and whether you guys hire or look at hiring practices differently because of the whole COVID situation?
Okay. Hi everyone. Yes. So we are into event tech industry. So we have a product called Give Me. That's the flagship product that we have. And so with this, what we do is we take care of high-profile events across the world. So currently, if you ask me regarding having two strong candidates in the internship phase, right? So how do I choose one? So my approach will be simple, right? I'm just gonna look at the role that I have in hand, and then the candidate's background, right? The person believes that he or she can be with us for a longer time, can learn things, and is interested towards even tech industry, then that's the person I'm going to pick. So yes, creativity is the word that we should definitely use when we choose for internship, but then along with that, we should see the fitment also. So that's what going to be my approach here.
Cool. Thank you for that. David, why don't you answer next?
So basically, if there's two candidates, as a fresh grad, right, it's hard to know who's going to be better than the other. So for us, what we will do is we will hire both, and then we will fire fast. So the cost of this is we lose if we do not fire fast. But not knowing who to hire at first is not an issue. So we just get both. That's the straight up answer I think that we'll do, because we'll never know. And that sometimes is good as well, because when two people come in, they'll try to outdo each other, which is better for us as well. And then in the end, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, right? So when it doesn't fit, it's never because that person sucks or anything. It's just more like, it didn't fit the job, right? And they will understand as well, and they will see that they're not performing as well as the other person, and maybe that other person could help in another way. So, and fresh grads are slightly more, they're cheaper talent because they're fresh grads, so it's okay to get both to start off with. Best case scenario, we keep both. Worst case scenario, we get rid of one, and that's fine. We send them off to another job that might fit them better. Whether it has changed or not post pandemic, I think once the pandemic hit, we really only hired for roles that were essential to the business. So some roles that were nice to have, that could help grow the business a little bit more. At this time, we were just kind of holding off a little bit, just because we never know when there's going to be another lockdown. We hope not, right? But if it does, then at least we were very, very lean to begin with. So I think maybe next year or end of next year onwards, we can be a little bit more lavish with hiring, but for now we'll keep it to bare essentials.
So yeah, David, that's definitely the first time I've heard that take. Good to know. Laura, why don't you tell us about Arpon's take on this?
Well, I'd say that, if I had two candidates at equal kind of qualifications, I would definitely probably look back also at how they prepared their application for this position. I think a mistake that a lot of fresh grads do is like sending out 150 emails to recruiters with like just a template and like a name change and the same cover letter. I think that's a mistake. And I always, encourage a lot of people to apply for 10 instead of 100, but really take the time to understand the company culture, stalk the company on their social media everywhere to really prepare something that feels engaging and that feels like they really are in it for the long run. And I think that's a better strategy always. So I would probably, at equal qualification, I would probably take a step back and look through like, how did this person prepare for this opportunity? Did they really take the time to completely tailor their resume towards my job description? Did they really write something in their cover letter that felt true and not just rehashing my mission on my homepage? And I think so. I think I would go back towards this if I had like two really great people to look for. And I think that's what I would recommend as well to all the fresh grads here and students, is to really take the quality over quantity approach. It will pay off, much more, in my opinion, specifically for startups, that are looking actually for cultural fits. It's so important. And I think we can read through it. If you send us an email that has a cover letter that just feels like, it's another cover letter that you wrote for another recruiter, we can see it. So try to be mindful of that. So that's number one. I hope that answers it. And number two, I think that in terms of, the post-pandemic, I think that what you can do is like, and I think maybe the changes of, I think people are looking for candidates that can work independently, that are really good in following through despite not being, in an office. And that's difficult for a junior. I think we're all lucky, all of us, to kind of start our career in offices because you have, that mentorship element that's there. I think that for a lot of you guys, I understand that it's a little bit of a struggle to be starting a career, in front of a computer on Slack. So I think that I'd say push forward your skills on demonstrate how you are able to work independently, work remotely, maybe through your studies and what projects you follow through. I think that's probably something that people are paying a little bit more attention of. But of course, for us, we also didn't change specifically our process of recruitment, but I'd say just something to pay attention to.
Really love to hear that COVID hasn't really affected the way you guys look at candidates. That's great. And as an ex-fresh grad who took the opposite of Laura's approach, I 100% agree with her and say you should look at quality more than quantity any day of the week, especially when it comes to your job. To round this out, Arvi, why don't you tell us about what Shuttle looks for in this situation?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer this under the assumption that these two candidates are of the same level on paper, right? And we're only allowed to hire one. Okay, so unfortunately, unlike David, I can't hire both, right? So if I'm only allowed to hire one, I'm gonna look at number one, character and personality, right? How I'm gonna look at the candidate in terms of, do I think this candidate will gel well with the people who are already working in the company? Because there's already an existing culture within our company, and I can't for the life of me hire someone who will ruin that culture, right? So that's super important. The second one is potential. Like, which candidate am I seeing a bigger potential to, number one, grow within the company and help the company grow as well? So that's the answer for the first question. The second one, did we change anything in our hiring process? I don't think so, except that pre-pandemic, we were like interviewing face-to-face. Now it's all virtual. But in terms of hiring, the process is still the same. I would say the volume is bigger now, is higher now, because we're looking for more people to join our team. But essentially, it's the same process.
Perfect. And I'm so sorry I missed you out just now. Andre, why don't you run this out and tell us what EDU Drift would do in this situation?
Yeah, I think I concur with RV that at EduDrift we don't have the luxury that David has, right? To be able to just see all these amazing candidates and just why don't we just hire all of them and then make them run and see who runs the fastest, and keep the best one. Unfortunately for us, there's scarcity in resources, right? I don't think the VC that's advising us is going to allow us to just hire en masse. But I think for us, what we do, on a more personal way, is that if we have access to two very quality candidates, I think what we will pose to them is, how would they react if given the responsibility to participate in events? Because as a startup, I think we are often involved in networking events, in building events for our own brand, or even being part of events, right? And how we we put them in scenarios where they might have to address a crowd or perform the role that you are doing right now, Tama, right? Where you have 100 or maybe 300 attendees, where you have to host, you have to moderate, you have to speak with institutional partners. How would they react? Because I think that usually it's outside of your own comfort zone, right? Like you gotta greet people. Like a candidate for us that is ideal is likely to say, look, that's gonna be fun. I know what I would like to do, and this is how I'm gonna, shape those events. And because that's gonna be either being able to bring out the brand philosophy of the team, or to be able to at least give everyone a good experience. I think the ability to, think in that manner to us is quite important, because here at EduDrift we work with a lot of young people and a lot of talents from around the world. So, event organizing is actually a very crucial part, and it's likely to take place in the next couple of months. So I think that's for us a sort of the barometer in which we judge one against another. For us actually, we started our startup pre-pandemic, so actually there is a change in terms of like our expectations of what we see in candidates pre-pandemic and right now. So pre-pandemic, we are always looking for individuals who are ready to say, look, if you have to fly overseas, will you be comfortable with that? If you have to go out there and meet partners who are from universities or from bigger companies, right? Even though you are a junior associate, are you willing to, be daring enough to go there, shake hands, talk to them, and all that? So I think those are the qualities we look forward to in a team member pre-pandemic. In the pandemic era, what we're looking more is, are you a person who is comfortable with being on Slack, on Jira, on Trello, right? Are you comfortable with collaborative tools? Are you able to embrace technology? Because if you're like, look, I can't stand being on Zoom all the time. I don't like to schedule my meetings on Calendly. I think Slack is really a problem. Like I can't keep in threads. I like to keep my files offline and not on the cloud. If you're a person that can't adjust, that's an absolute no-no for us, right? Because I think if there is a sort of a dysfunctional relationship on Trello, on Jira, on Slack, we can't work effectively remotely. So I think that's a main sort of change in pre-pandemic hires and pandemic hires, which personally I don't think it's a pandemic thing. I think it's just a paradigm shift, right? I think moving forward, even if COVID is gone, right, and I do hope it's gone pretty soon, right? Is that I think those are qualities and those are expertise that individuals ought to be able to have, because remote work seems to be the new thing already, right? So I do think, if anything, any new hires should get yourself acquainted to, all these very common collaborative apps. And if you never heard of them before today, I think it's a good opportunity to go find out about them and try to get used to them. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Andre. And I guess just the conclusion and something that was resonated from all our panelists here is, if you take the effort to make sure that you think you can fit for this company, there's a higher chance your application is probably going to go through anyway, because they're going to see that. So take some time and make sure you really think about something before you apply. My next question is more of a follow-up to this one. It's also basically on the pandemic. How are your companies coping with the current situation, pandemic, lockdowns? How are you making sure that employees are well taken care of in what I would say is this complete 180 on what everybody knew work culture was like? Why don't you start, Jeshta?
That was bad. Okay. Okay, I'm back. All right. So as we take care of large size events across the world, so first we make sure that our own employees are taken care. So we have our own process in place, and we have divided our entire process into three different sub processes. Like we take care of business continuity planning. We also have something called protective measures, and also we do a lot of leveraging on technology. What we do is, first we set up the business continuity planning. First we identify somebody inside the company who is going to be the SPOC for all COVID related activities. So they see what's happening across the world, in terms of the measures, like if it's coming from the Singapore health in the health ministry, and what kind of measures that we have to take on according to that. If we inform the employees to mask on regularly, they sanitize regularly. These are the basic stuff that we always keep on telling them, even though it's always there on paper, even though it's on internet, we still tell them all the time during our calls and events. Also, we make sure that during our events with different companies, we make sure the number of attendees, how we are going to restrict the number in case it's a hybrid event. We also see, what kind of measures the companies are taking. Like, if they are adhering to the guidelines provided by a specific country, because we do it for different countries, like, for Middle East and Singapore and India. So we see that, if they're adhering to the ministry guidelines, we also see that, they documenting it and are they implementing it. So, those kind of steps that we take for sure. And then apart from that, we leverage on technology. When I say that, let me tell you. So very recently we launched something called Welcome. That's a software that's launched by Global Sign-In. So that's another software which is typically into guest management. So what we do is we take care of the basic details from any attendee across the world for any event. And we just make sure that they put the right details, and by that, we kind of know that if the person is vaccinated or they're acting as per the guidelines or no. So that's what we are doing for our own employees and also for external events for our customers.
Lovely, thank you. Narissa, why don't you go next?
Yeah, so we are a technology company, so it'd be very sad if we were not equipped tech to help support our staff. As I said, we all work with people, like all our coworkers are in different time zones. So we've kind of always had to find ways to connect with each other. During the pandemic, when everyone, even people who did go into the office, were no longer going to the office, we actually had a culture club that would come up with online events that we could do across the APAC region, and then a separate team who worked on the EMEA region. So, they just had like meetups, played games together. We had one of our team managers was a yoga instructor, so he actually ran yoga sessions so that we could all kind of do that at home. And then, of course, we have like our internal messaging platform. So we use Slack and email and LinkedIn, and really we're connected in all sorts of different ways. And we also, in Australia and other places, we have access to an employee assistance provider. So, for the pandemic, mental health was very big. A lot of people were quite affected. So we had counseling services available to our staff, and it's quite generous. I've worked at a previous company here that didn't offer as generous of a package, but we have 5 counseling sessions for each issue. So really, it's kind of like unlimited access, which a lot of people don't get. And counseling can be very expensive if you want to kind of do it on your own. So it's great for an organization to cover that. And yeah, we're pretty well connected in the sense that, we're used to it. So we're used to being in that global space where our people are all over the globe. Like especially for the talent acquisition team, I'm the only recruiter in Australia. My other recruiters in Malaysia, we have a recruiter in the US, and a recruiter in Costa Rica. So for us, we regularly have, bi-weekly chats that we can keep in touch. And that goes for a lot of the other teams that we have. So like our sales team, one of the managers is in the US, but then we have sales staff in Australia. So it's been a very interesting dynamic to kind of see how we've sort of continued what we were doing, but also elevated it by creating more regular connections with the team, and kind of that importance of, even though you're remote, you don't want to make someone feel like they're isolated. You want to make sure that they're connected with their teams, but also are able to have that time to socially connect. So we do like happy hours every month together. We are also aware of, Zoom fatigue. I don't know if anyone felt it in the beginning, but all of a sudden, everyone was available for Zoom calls all the time. And I have friends all over, and it was just a bit too much because you were Zooming for work and then Zooming outside of work. So also just making sure that your staff have time to step away from the computer and do something for themselves as well. So that's where the flexibility comes in. If anyone needed to go for a vaccine, they didn't really have to ask, they would just go get it done. We trust our employees to get their work done. Don't really care what hours they work either, as long as they get the work done, we trust them. So if they need to take some time to go for an appointment or do anything that they needed to do, we would let them. If there was no, you have to ask permission. And I think that really helps also in terms of helping with people's mental health, because they're not stressing about trying to get their work done, but then also having to do other things outside of work. Yeah.
Amazing. That's just so many good initiatives right there. Thanks, Narissa. Arvi, why don't you go next?
Okay. I think the biggest challenge that companies are facing right now, because of the pandemic, is mental health, and how to avoid burnout within the employees. And there are a couple of ways our companies address that, and some of them are actually similar to how Narisa's company did it, because I think we are in the same industry, so probably we're thinking the same. Number one, we gave up our physical office, right? So we are now, I mean, for us here in the Singapore office, right, we are now 100% working from home. It's probably going into a hybrid one next year. We don't know yet, based on the protocols that the government is releasing. But right now, number one, we're working from home 100%. So personally, the biggest challenge for me is I don't know how to switch off, because my desk is right beside my bed. So can you imagine, the moment I wake up, what I see is my laptop, right? And the first thing I think about is responding to my email. So to Narisa's point, our company is like ensuring that you still have personal space. You still know how to have fun, to work hard yet have play hard, right? That's the approach that we're doing right now. So what we're doing is that every so often, every Friday, we'll go out, meet our colleagues here, drink, talk about work, talk about our personal lives, right? Apart from that, similar to Marissa's company, we don't actually keep tabs of what everyone is doing in our company. As long as you deliver what is expected of you, it's up for you to manage your time. That's really important, right? Because especially in the pandemic, you're just at home, right? You have a lot of errands that you're probably neglecting about. So if you think that during lunchtime or even early in the morning you need to go to the supermarket to go to buy something, or you want to get breakfast from somewhere, it's okay, as long as within the day you make sure that your tasks are done, everything is fully delivered, then we don't really care what you do and how you manage your entire day. And finally, I think what's most important is, the biggest thing that our company is doing right now is hiring for more people, because at the end of the day, you can do a lot of those Friday night drinking, sending basic care packages to your employees, but at the end of the day, if you are not trying to lessen their workload, then how are they going to manage, and how are they going to have that personal space that is needed to clear their mind with during the pandemic? So, and this is also the reason why we're here, because we're hiring for more people to help with the workload. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much, RV. Laura, why don't you answer next?
Well, I think you asked the question, like, how did COVID impact you guys? Like, for us, like, we were in the business of international travel, recruitment, and visas. So let me tell you that the impact was like the triple threat on our end. We were like on the phone with like the Australian consulates and like repatriating people from New York to Australia. It was just crazy. So I will start with that. It was very, very interesting, though, obviously, for me as a CEO to kind of like learn how to do insane crisis management, but we've managed to like bring everybody home and get everybody back. I think that for us it impacted us a lot in terms of shifting our mentality and really turning our program not only around international programs, but also really developing our coaching curriculum for fresh grads and students to really get on the next, getting them connected with coaches and reworking their resume and portfolios and industry sessions. So we really expanded our services as well on local opportunities too. And that's actually when we launched Australia. So before we didn't have programs in Melbourne, Sydney, and we did that because we're working with a lot of Australian universities who are normally going to our New York and Berlin programs. So the impact was major, but I'm really proud to say that we managed to like still have 100% growth through COVID for the past 2 years. So that's been really incredible. And I think it's because we pivoted. In terms of like our staff, to be honest, we've always been on that remote game on our end, like before COVID as well. So we have an office where I'm now in Jakarta, which is where I'm located. So we have an office where our staff is coming in, our local staff is coming in because we have staff also in the cities that we operate in. But people are coming in a hybrid model. For me, I'm in the same way that RB was saying as well, is like the work, so long as the work is done, that's what matters to me. I'm not a micromanager. And I think that that's what people need right now. In any case, they need to have the space to be able to organize themselves. So I think that for us, we were not insanely impacted in terms of our staffing and like how to protect them. They were always very on a remote way and being able to work wherever they want, but it certainly impacted the business a lot. But it's been a great journey, and like, you know, fortunate to have survived it and have not fired any of our staff and expanded the team despite all the challenges.
That's great, and great to hear that you guys have managed to sustain with clearly COVID affecting you guys a lot. Wow, I wasn't prepared for that. Max, why don't you go next?
So for us, we started, like I said, in April 1st this year. So we are literally starting, figuring things out and hiring at the same time. So it was quite of a challenge, but the fact that I was at Bain previously, so I have experience on how corporate do implement the measure implemented by big corporates to deal with the work from home situation. So for us, and also because of our culture, we offered, of course, work from home, not just work from home, but a lot of flexibility. Well, what do I mean by that? We don't care about hard work, we care about getting the job done. And so sometimes you have to work night or you have to work weekend to get things done. But although we say, our employment contract have X days of holidays, but if you get your work done, we don't really care. So you can take more days than what is being stated in the employment contract because of the flexibility. Because sometimes because of work, you have to work late. So we are trying to compensate you for that. So in a sense, the flexibility is what we provide. And I think that's what differentiates us from most corporate or most startup setting. You know, if you get your work done and you want to take a whole month off, by all means, please do it. We are totally fine with that. And of course, for people who want to come to the office, we have a strict vaccine mandate, and also weekly testing for people who come in to prevent any issues. And tech too, I think everybody have that, Jira, Zoom, Slack, that's normal. But I think what separates us apart is the team support culture, especially as we hire some fresh grad and also some experienced hire this year. So to help our fresh grad adjust, for example, we have they get one-to-one time with me, 1 hour a week for all fresh grads, so that I can help them make sure that they're okay, not just in terms of work, but outside of work as well. They're doing okay mentally and at work. We spend extra time training our fresh grad because we know that it's a difficult environment, especially for fresh grad to come out and work in this hybrid work from home environment. But we also give a lot of room for our employee to develop themselves. For us, career development is just you manage your own career development at Pantas. So we give them all the resources they need, and we train them to be able to do important stuff. For example, we do have a fresh grad who joined us April this year, and as of 2 months ago, she already started to pitch to hundreds of our customers in webinar, etc. We do have fresh hires who I bring them to meetings with chairmen and CEO of one of the largest banks in Malaysia. For us, if you are able to learn a lot, we will give you all the necessary resources to excel at Pantas, and we will give you support and flexibility. I guess that's the conclusion. Support and flexibility to make sure that you do well in this kind of environment. That's all.
Nice one, Max. Nice. Andre, why don't you go next?
Yeah, so I think I share a little bit of the concern that Laura had about switching into a pandemic kind of mode. For us, from our name EduDrift, you notice a little bit about what we were initially. So previously, we were actually sort of like pushing for talents to travel and to be in different countries, right? And that was a big problem when we switched, when the pandemic hit, right? So we had a lot of like programs cancellation. We lost a lot of money because it was fair only for students to get their money back if they weren't able to make the travels. Obviously, we also needed to maintain rapport and trust with our specialists as well. So we can't afford for them to bear the brunt of the cost as well. So I think dealing with all this traveling, visa issues and all that, that was a big headache at the start. But I thought like and also I mean the team kind of realized that with the pandemic it's also an opening of new opportunities, and for us pivoting over to 100% um, online world was actually pushed our valuation up, and that's something that's actually very well received with our VC partners, right? So previously they were skeptical about how sustainable is traveling and high price point programs, and now with the switch to online, that's something that's actually favorable as well. So I think it was a blessing in disguise for us in terms of dealing with the pandemic. But because EduDrift deals with like talents from all around Asia, where they teach classes from where they are. I think one of the main issues that we found out in the pandemic era is that it is it is a wrongful assumption that everyone has the same equipment and capability to execute a remote work, right? And what we realize is that for our partners and even our employees in the Philippines, in certain parts of India, is that internet access or even like electricity or and stability of electricity is something that is taken for granted. And oftentimes these are not as the infrastructure development is not as well as what we assume in say Singapore or even Malaysia, right? So I think what the company eventually got to do for both our own employees as well as the specialists working with us is that we need to be able to set aside budget to equip them, right? So I think for us it's not it's simple things like having the budget so that they can travel out to a cafe in which they can work more conducively. If it sometimes we don't realize problems like where people live in a household where there are a lot of family members as well, that they just can't work, like even if there's strong internet and there's a good camera or there's a good microphone, they just can't work because there's just too many people around. And being able to set aside a budget to say, look, if you need to move out for a bit, right, if you need to during working hours, go to a hotel cafe to work from there because that's more productive, I think that's something that we need to do. And I think we even moved over to even like giving budget for people to have standing tables, better chairs, right? And those things are taken for granted, right? Like just find a way to manage your home office setting. But for us, we realize it's actually once you initiate that, it's actually very much appreciated, right? Because if people can work in a better environment, then they work more productively, right? And similarly, I think we brought that philosophy to our partners who are teaching classes from wherever they are. That the next right now as we move into our next round of funding, the primary funding objective is really to set up satellite office spaces in which our specialists can go to conduct their classes, so they don't have to worry about unstable internet, unstable electricity, occasional blackouts, that they can go there and give their all, right? So I think equipping individuals and not assuming that everybody is as privileged is a I think it's a new discovery that we had in dealing with the pandemic, and I thought like maybe that's something that's interesting. Yeah.
That was really interesting. Thank you for sharing, Andre. And to round us up, David, anything to add on this?
I think a lot of people covered everything. I mean, if I was working, I would want to work with Andre's company so that all my basic needs will be taken care of. But I think we're in the less fortunate position where we will assume that our teammates will take care of themselves. So we will encourage them to say, hey man, if you need to take a nap in the afternoon, take a nap in the afternoon. It's okay, right? Because I'd rather you do proper work than actually like fall asleep and do it all wrong. So I think those are the things that we encourage them on their well-being, not necessarily fund it through additional allowances, maybe just because we don't have the luxury to do it yet. But I think we encourage them to do it themselves. Because if they don't, then we have to find somebody else that does. Wow, sorry, I'm very brutal here. But basically, like what everybody said, RV, Laura, everybody, right? Like you said, even Max said as well. We treat them like adults because we want them to act like adults, right? If they act like adults, then it'll all be taken care of. Not so much luxury and benefits. And one thing, like we always, we don't encourage, but our teammates are always very comfortable in coming to tell us about their other opportunities outside of Dimples as well. Dimples might not be something that's enough to challenge them, right? Of course, they take on multiple roles within Dimples, but then sometimes, if that like a side job comes in and say, hey, I'll be like, go for it. I mean, if that will help you grow even more, go for it, right? As long as you can take care of whatever you can take care of in the company and help us grow as well, I don't see how that would be detrimental to you, because I think sometimes that will help them grow as well. Something that we can't give them to satisfy their learning needs in that sense. So yeah, but I think I concur with everything that was said here.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. And just to round us up, and before we move into the specific presentation sections of this session, why don't you guys round robin tell me, final word, one sentence, why should students apply to your organization? Let's start with Laura. Let's go.
One sentence. Wow. Well, I guess, look, I would say that if some of you guys, students or fresh grads, are looking to really get a step up in your career with an international experience, we can certainly, really support you guys in that process. So I would say for those who are on that game and interested in doing so, then obviously feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to see if you're eligible and if we can help.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura. David?
Join us because we are small now, so you can shape the company with us.
Always a good opportunity. Oh, hello, Arvi, do you want to go next?
Oh, okay. Good. I thought you were calling somebody else because you were breaking up. No worries. Join us if you would like to be in a company and work with crazy, passionate, talented people who are in a digital landscape that's ever changing and ever evolving.
Lovely. Thank you. Max?
So Pantas offer one-of-a-kind solution to help companies digitize and obtain affordable financing while taking care of the environment. So if you're interested in finance, tech, and would like to fight climate change and make a real difference, and please give us a call. Thank you.
Thank you. Andre?
I think join EduDrift if you're interested in making a meaningful impact for talented individuals in the developing parts of Asia, right? So it's really impact driven if that's what you're out for.
Thank you. Narissa?
Hard time fitting things into one sentence, but join TIRA if you're looking to work for an innovative tech company that's kind of working towards the future of marketing and really committed to remote and flexible working for their staff, and of course opportunities to really learn on the job and grow your career.
Love that. Thank you. And to round us off and to conclude this session, Jaysha, one sentence, why should people apply to Global Sign-In?
Okay, there is just not one reason, to be honest. Okay, so we have a very young team. We are spread across India, Singapore, Philippines, and we have a virtual connect with all these countries. I mean, we have a very passionate team of tech engineers. So somebody who is interested in tech plus event, and they want to have a career in a super product-based company. So they would definitely like to apply for us.
Interesting. Love that. And with that, that concludes the end of our panel session.